All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is a very exciting day in the halo of a Niners victory. And I know we have a lot of people who join us from Los Angeles and Southern California, where the Niners are the hated foes of the LA Rams. But, and by the way, the Rams should have beaten Detroit in their playoff game, I think. But leave that aside. Detroit played a very impressive first half of football. And then the Niners played a very impressive one half of football in the second half. It was an extraordinary game, and we have a KGO, and that's the radio station from which this show was birthed, a KGO Hall of Famer joining us today to kind of sort through what happened and talk about the Super Bowl. Rich Walcoff will be along in just about 90 seconds. That'll be great. David Katz then slides in with a segment all about getting the E. Jean Carroll judgment money from Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. And we have a special mystery writer in the mix. He is he's a New York Times best-selling mystery writer. He's a true crime author. He writes crime fiction and he writes true crime. And he is a prolific writer. I can't believe he's on this. Prolific is a ding word. Gregg Olson, the master of both crime fiction and true crime, joins us for True Crime Corner. That is bottom of the hour. Courtney will be along as well. Next hour, Law and Disorder. The second hour, I have a Wizard of Oz related pair of stories. And I have a Wizard of Oz trivia question that all can guess. You know, it's not one of those trivia questions where you really need to know the Wizard of Oz or cinema or whatever super well to be able to play. Stories from the Sky and more, second hour, and of course, a word about animals on Mondays as well. So that's your lineup. That's your playbook. Let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's the former KGO radio sports director. He, as I say, I think he is KGO Hall of Fame. Rich Walcoff. What's up, Rich?
Mark, great to see you, hear you. It's been forever, buddy. But
it has been too long,
on
pal.
all the good things going for you.
Thank you, man. That's so nice. Well, you're really kind to give us a few minutes, and I won't abuse the privilege here, but I can't even think of the Niners. For my era, when I was listening to the Niners games on the radio regularly, I can't think of them without thinking of you. You know, so it's only fitting that in this latest march to the Super Bowl, we talk to you. Now, this game yesterday was, it was a tale of two halves, I guess, and all that stuff. But I wonder if you can sort out what happened. It looked to me like the Niners didn't show up for the first half. They were getting blown out.
Yeah, well, they got jumped on. The Lions schemed them phenomenally, and Jared Goff had time to throw because the 49ers were playing kind of that shell coverage. Don't get beaten over the top. They weren't aggressive. They didn't turn them loose, and Jared Goff picked them apart. And the running, I mean, I think the Lions had almost 160 yards rushing in the first half. That's the most a Kyle Shanahan team has ever given up. But at halftime, I guess the youth and inexperience of the Lions with the grit and gutting determination of the 49ers, they flipped the switch. I've got whiplash because that game was so schizo. But, you know, you dropping balls left and right. Dan Campbell, who gets gobs of credit for turning an awful franchise into a contender in 2.5 years, made some bonehead decisions to forego field goals.
You thought that there were key moments consistent with Campbell's general disposition, you know, as a gunslinging type coach, where he didn't go for the field goal. Instead, Twice, right.
Twice. You know, during the regular season is one thing, and I know you do what got you there is the mentality, but when you're in a championship game in the playoffs, the mentality changes. I remember Bruce Bochy in the World Series pitching Madison Bumgarner 5 1/3 innings of relief to close out Game 7 against the Royals in 2016 to win their third championship. You throw out the book, you play the moment, and it's different in the playoffs where there's no tomorrows. And Campbell had a chance to go up 27-10 in the third quarter, spurned a field goal, went for it on 4th and 2, got stopped, and that kind of jump-started the Niner comeback. And it happened again later in the game where he spurned a field goal to go up by a.
But that was to tie the game, wasn't it? Was that to tie the game? Didn't he?
Yeah, late. And of course, what did Brenda Ayuk say after catching the bounced ball off the face mask of the defensive back of the Lions at the 5-yard line? He goes, "There was a ladybug on my shoe. Just living large." I mean, who would have fathomed this comeback?
Tony is with us today, who runs a lot of the technical stuff and makes stuff happen. Tony, you have of him actually? Are you saying that? Is that what you said? What were you saying, Tony?
Thanks, Tony.
Here it is, Rich. This is Ayuk actually commenting on that, I think.
Before the game, a ladybug landed on my shoe. And y'all know what that means. So that's all I can say, because other than that, I don't know.
That was unreal. Just the best.
Oh,
just
my
the
gosh.
Best.
Well,
so, yeah, those were extraordinary catches. And then to be perfectly blunt about it, Detroit, they dropped key passes. I mean, there was a 3rd and 9 they dropped. A couple of clean. Goff was playing well, I thought. He had a good game.
Yeah. Reynolds dropped a couple. Ross St. Brown, the Pro Bowler, dropped one. It was just a calamity of misfortune for the Lions, they had this game. All they had to do was take care of business. Now, I must say, Christian McCaffrey, rose up in the second half. He couldn't buy a yard in the first half, and he rocked in the second half. And the Niner offensive line protected Brock Purdy in the second half much better. And then Purdy doing his
that's
baby
the key.
Joe Montana impersonation, spinning away from trouble and making things happen with his legs. So they lived a kind of a charmed life in the Lions' collapse and their resurgence. I can't fathom how the Niners are favored in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, but the early line has them a 2.5-point advantage over KC.
Yeah, you saw it's pointed out here in the chat. Purdy threw an interception the first half. Yeah, and then he became this, as you suggest, a Montana-esque yard rusher on the ground, and as well as you've also said, kind of buying time with rollouts and improv moves. I mean, very Mahomes-like, Mahomes or Montana-like, where you're rolling around looking, and then you just flick the ball. To Juszczyk was that one remarkable catch.
Beautiful catch. Catch. Yeah. And he was rolling left and threw back the other way, which is the proverbial cardinal sin. But Purdy has shown this in the past. He's very innovative and on the improv and on the rollout. He's got a good sense of going through his progressions and reading the field. So, is he a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. But look, he's got his team in the Super Bowl. And you tip your cap because it sure didn't look like it was going to happen at halftime yesterday.
Well, and one of the reasons, and then I will let you're so kind to spend time there talking to Rich Walcoff, the former KGO radio sports director, so much a part of the Niners DNA when it came to broadcasting those games for so long. It's just so funny that in a league where the quarterbacks are really the center of attention, and I understand why. You got these Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, even Goff, who throws this beautiful ball, or Stafford, in Los Angeles. All of these, they are larger than life, and they're so much a part of the conversation. And in San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey's the part of the conversation. And so Goff isn't that electrifying guy, but wow, he does bring a lot of capabilities. I don't think you win the game with just anybody else.
Well, you mean Purdy?
Purdy, yeah, Purdy. I'm sorry, yeah, Purdy.
Hey, you win the game because the Lions mishandled the football. The Lions strategy, went down the tubes, and the 49ers were opportunistic like they were the last week before against the Packers. They played 3 terrible quarters. So they,
You're right. I'd forgotten about that. This is kind of their this is kind of their deal, isn't it?
Well, this is not a good formula because the Packers were the youngest team ever in Green Bay history to make the postseason. The Lions hadn't been in a playoff game in, half a lifetime. And all those guys were newbies. The coach was a newbie. You're taking on a 2-time Super Bowl champion Chiefs team, and Andy Reid, the brilliant strategist offensively. Steve Spagnuolo, what a defensive coordinator the Chiefs have. And he absolutely throttled and stymied Lamar Jackson in Baltimore to upset the Ravens, the top seed there. So the Niner task gets a whole lot more challenging in the Super Bowl than it was these last couple of weeks.
That's such a great call. And I want to just, last thing, touch on that Ravens game in a second, since we are going to deal with the Chiefs next. But somebody had something for you. Rich Walcoff, what happened to the 49er defense in the fourth quarter? They let Detroit score, gave me a heart attack. Lions were playing hard, almost lost it.
Well, they were up by 10, so they were in a shell. Again, they were, bend, don't break, everything in front of you. Don't give up the big home run ball, which they didn't until the final play. But that was 1 minute to go. They got the onside, they recovered the onside kick and then played out the clock. You just don't want to give up a big strike home run ball, and they didn't. I'm not a big fan of Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, because I think he belies the instinct of this team defensively. Their mentality is attack and be aggressive and pursue, and he has them in zone and more of a read and react mode. And I think it's hurt them in 2 playoff games. They were able to escape with wins, but not convincingly, and only by the skin of their teeth against the Packers and the Lions. Can't play that way against Patrick Mahomes. You've got to get after him. And you saw, well, you pick your poison on that. You get after Mahomes and he can run away or, make great throws. But I think that the Niners play their best when they're in more of an aggressive, blitz-oriented attack mode. But that's not Steve Wilks' MO.
No, interesting. Really interesting. And they may have to re-scheme for the Super Bowl. So just because you mentioned Mahomes, that game also seemed to be marked by self-destruction. I mean, I'm thinking of how the Ravens completely self-destructed on the last drive. Well, Flowers were they?
Yeah, true, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum, Mark. The pressure that Lamar Jackson was under, the coverage. The Kansas City defense is overlooked and underestimated. They are the best defense that Andy Reid has ever had in his 8 years there in Kansas City. They just get after you. They cover. They got Pro Bowl corners, Pro Bowl caliber safety, and the scheme that Spagnuolo designs is very, very evolved. They made Lamar Jackson look mortal, and that's hard to do because he's your MVP in waiting. I mean, he's going to be the MVP for the regular season. He surely didn't look it yesterday at all.
Such a great call. Yeah, they made this guy look mortal. Right. So the Niners are a slight favorite in the Super Bowl, even as they had to have a perfect second half, and they had it. I mean, unprecedented 27 unanswered second half points.
Crazy.
And so it'll be February 11th. Maybe if you're available, February 12th, we'll talk about it.
You got it, buddy. I'll gladly join you. Thanks. Great catching up with you, Mark.
Yeah, and right back at you. It's such a cool thing to be able to talk to you again. Rich Walcoff. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Buddy. Bye-bye.
Love my Rich Walcoff. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's all Kim McAllister is good at staying on the alumni chain with the KGO. If you're just joining us, we are a show that came out of a radio station called KGO. It's a big talk radio station in Northern California. That's why we feel connected to this team, the San Francisco 49ers. As I noted, we have people joining from Southern California and other places also. I personally love the Buffalo Bills. They had a rough go. We have a few listeners in Buffalo. So wherever your loyalties lie and however they got there, it's the season gets narrow and narrower in terms of who gets through. And, I'm just looking at the Lions. I mean, the Lions had a lot of support, Kim. I mean, it's funny. They really, working class Detroit, they could be, but Jared Goff grew up in Marin County.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. I was reading this article where they're trying to paint him as this blue collar, perfect, coming from Detroit, hard scrabble. The guy grew up in Marin. What?
Oh, that's terrific.
Who is having that conversation?
A lot of people are. They are trying to represent Detroit as America's team. And so, as Kim has noted, Goff as sort of this working class guy. Here's something. Goff is the perfect fit as the leader of this blue-collar Detroit outfit that truly represents the real America's team. Move aside, Dallas Cowboys. Never mind that Goff grew up in Marin, deep in the heart of Niners country, and possibly the least blue-collar place imaginable, Marin County.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Not that there's not blue-collar workers in Marin, but chances are pretty good if he grew up playing football in Marin County. I don't know. Thinking he's, Did they say what high school he went to? Was it like Marin Catholic or something?
I'm sure they did. Let me...
I wonder where he went to high school.
No, it doesn't say. Oh, no, it doesn't say. No. In any case, well, you heard Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Kim is here. Tony's here, and you are here. Please smash the like button.
It with your iron rod.
Try to give you a solid show. Now, look, I'm not focusing on the football exclusively. We did it. We wanted to do it. And now we're going to move on to what I think is pretty big news also. It came in on Friday.
The Mark Thompson Show.
An $83 million judgment in the Donald Trump defamation case. So over the weekend, we put the bat beam up, and you'll see me from a hotel room beaming in with David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, now defense lawyer, who, as you know, is used by London radio and television. He's also used by New York and San Francisco and Los Angeles on television to Fox, uses him, Fox News Channel, to essentially decode a lot of the legal stuff. And in this case, the question becomes, will E. Jean Carroll, 80 years old, recover her money? And this is her money now that a jury has decided she should get. So here's my conversation with David Katz.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Joining us, the great former prosecutor, now defense attorney, David Katz joins us to help sort out. This is a special edition of Katzadamus and the David Katz sorting out of yet another legal judgment in the world of Donald Trump. First of all, David, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you to talk about this bombshell, $83 million against Trump.
Can a jury come up with whatever figure they want? Where did that figure come from?
At some point, the courts are going to say that it's disproportionate, and that will be one of his issues on appeal. At $65 million in punitive damages, the jury found it as punitive damages. You don't need to go through and figure out, I wonder what part of it was for this or that. There's about $10 million for reputational repair. In other words, something that a person like her would actually do to try to get her reputation back. You could spend some money on it. I guess you could, publicize the fact that, if you were a more normal person, now because of the huge media coverage that it's gotten, I think it has repaired her reputation to a large extent because people, I think, have a different view of her, having won now twice. But she says, I've been hurt terribly. Not only did these people threaten to kill me, and she's gotten something for her pain and suffering. That's about 7 or 8 million. So 7 or 8 million for her pain and suffering, 10 million for remedies she might take that would cost her $10 million to help repair her reputation, but $65 million for punitive damages. And you can say that that's fairly proportionate. And on top of that, Mark, one of the great legal, I mean, it's going to be one of these things people study in law school for decades, is that the Kaplan and her side, and she's not related to Judge Kaplan, so that's confusing, but Roberta Kaplan and her law firm, who are representing E. Jean Carroll, got a hold of this deposition that he gave. And, you know, Trump has always played this game that when it suits his purposes, he's very rich and he's also very poor, talking about the same assets. So during the deposition, Trump thought that it helped him to show himself as very rich. So he said, I have $400 million in cash under oath. He said, I have a $10 billion company under oath. And so that was played to this jury, and to get somebody's attention and to deter them and to get them to stop defaming E. Jean Carroll, they could argue to the jury, well, a guy with $400 million cash and a $10 billion company, to give this guy the message, you need $65 million in punitive damage. So on balance, I think it's going to stand up in the appeals court against the argument that it's disproportionate for this defendant who is recalcitrant about it. He's been incorrigible on this issue. And let me say one last thing. When he gave his press conference afterwards, or his Truth Social postings afterwards, where he blasted the judge and he blasted the legal system, he was very careful not to defame E. Jean Carroll again.
He's finally gotten the memo. But I go back to my, I mean, you explain and contextualize quite well how they got that number in an acceptable framework of what might be held up on appeal, for example, given, as you suggested, what was in deposition from Trump under oath. But when you're a juror, is there some guideline? Like, I wouldn't know as a juror just sitting there, 13 million, 30 million, where does 83 million come from?
Well, they made an argument as to all three items of damages. They made a showing of what it would cost to repair her reputation.
I see.
They made a showing as to the pain and suffering. They showed that there'd been this torrent of social media posts against her, threatening her life, saying all kinds of awful things. What pain and suffering would that cause? And you argue that back and forth. You know, the other side, Trump's side, argued that, well, you know, this was giving her the celebrity that she was losing otherwise. Elle magazine was in the dumps. Her column was.
They should be thanking me, right?
They should be thanking me. Yes, Trump is always the victim. They should be thanking me. They should be awarding me money. Remember that the deposition that he gave was not in this case. So it was very clever to get a hold of it, to show the judge why it was relevant in this case and to play it in this case. I think his ruling is safe on that. When you have someone saying under oath fairly recently that he was worth $10 billion company, $400 million in cash, I think that's very relevant because your ability to pay, you know, you and I would be deterred by a whole lot less than $65 million. I haven't seen your balance sheet, but, but Trump is bragging. And so the great line is, if you're a self-proclaimed billionaire, what did they say? Grab him by the wallet. Grab him by the wallet. Remember, he said, grab him by the you-know-what? So if you're a self-boasting billionaire, grab him by the wallet, Trump. They just grabbed you by the wallet.
So let's speak now to recovering those funds. You explained in your visit last week as to the bond that Trump posted. I thought that was really a good explanation. Maybe you want to review it for the audience that may not have seen it. But so that there is already some money in the system for E. Jean Carroll. This is a huge judgment, as noted. Will she get this? How does she get this? Is it posted in some escrow until she gets it? How does it proceed from here?
Well, I believe that she'll get it someday, or a lot of it someday, but it won't be today. And the reason it won't be today, let me go back to the first trial that they had. That was the one with Joe Tacopina. He was an interesting character who represented Trump. He didn't represent Trump this time. He only got off this case in early January, leaving it in the hands of Alina Habba. And there's been a lot of discussion back and forth about how she handled it as a lawyer. And I don't really want to get into that, although we can if you want to. But the $5 million.
Well, just because you mentioned it, the discussion essentially is that she was really in over her head, and that she really just didn't know what she was doing. And there was chapter and verse posted online about it. So you can return to it in a little bit if you want.
Well, Let me talk about it right now, then, so we don't jump around. somebody has to have their first really big case at some point in their career. You know, the first time that I faced off with Johnny Cochran, I told my boss, I said, I'm up against Johnny Cochran. Can I get some reinforcements in here? And my boss says, no, if you lose it on your own. I ended up winning it. Of course, that's usually why lawyers are telling the story, because it was a victory. And so I beat Johnny Cochran. That was about 3 years before the glove don't fit, you must acquit. And, you know, his just as an attorney, his remarkable and really marvelous as an attorney victory for O.J. Simpson. You know, a lot of people thought it was pretty unlikely based on the evidence. And I think Johnny Cochran, it has to be remembered, may he rest in peace, did a great job in that case. But my point is that, you know, at some point I had to try, you know, my first really big case, and I did, and I won. And I think his judgment was so terrible in this case that he didn't get a more experienced team, that he didn't keep Tacopina. He should have known a federal judge was not going to give him a delay. He should have known if he walked in there and said, oh, my lawyer from the first trial, Tacopina, who knows it so well, we had a dispute, blah, 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 that the judge is not going to be sympathetic to it. So I don't think that's going to be error, that he had to proceed to trial with this relatively inexperienced attorney. But there were some things along the way that it seems kind of surprising that they missed. You know, one of the things, this Roberta Kaplan has this wonderful associate on the case. She's a former law clerk to Judge Kaplan. She's Judge Kaplan's law clerk. That was disclosed on the record that she was the law clerk. And then they raised that during the trial at some point. Well, you can't raise that during the trial. You can bring a motion. The motion can be several ways, Mark. You can say that, look, she's been this judge's law clerk. Well, that's not necessarily a violation of ethics. It's not like this lawyer was the judge's wife or the judge's son. But, you know, law clerk, there's a very special relationship between a law clerk and the judge. And I think it's really a bad precedent. I think it's a bad idea for law clerks to go in front of the federal judge that they clerk for. I never took a case in front of the federal judge that I clerked for. And I know a lot of lawyers who feel the same way. And, you know, to tell a potential client, let's say, well, you know, I think I do a great job. I think I'd be a really zealous advocate for you. Here's my background. And then your competing lawyer says, I was the law clerk to the judge. He sang at my wedding. He married me. That just hits me as that first lawyer ought to get the case. I ought to get that case in that situation, not some lawyer who touts the fact that, you know, the judge sang at his wedding. Now, Judge Kaplan did not sing at her wedding, so far as I know. I wasn't there, but he did marry her and her husband on top of being the law clerk, her spouse. I don't know that it was a husband, you know, but whoever the former law clerk married and is now one of the stars of winning this case was the judge's law clerk. So, you know, there's two ways. You can move to recuse the judge on that basis. And if you lose, you can take it up on appeal. And you think that's something that Trump, with all of his, you know, minions and all of his money, would have done. Apparently he didn't. And you can also move to have that particular lawyer not work on the case. And you can try to knock out that lawyer's whole law firm, which, believe me, would have been a great move for Trump tactically if he could have gotten this Roberta Kaplan, because she was zealous, she was assiduous. You know, she's been on this thing. She's been on it when the chips were down. She's obviously the lawyer who persuaded that angel to give them $10 million at the beginning of the case in case they collected nothing for themselves and E. Jean Carroll. They had that $10 million. She assembled a tremendous team. So why Trump didn't move, Mark, to get her knocked off the case or to get the judge? He knew Kaplan was a bad pick for him. Now, people will say, well, he would have gotten another federal judge in the Southern District of New York. But it just the whole way that it was working out, Kaplan just seemed, especially after the first trial, that they should have done every effort in motions and in an appeal, in a writ of mandate, to try to get Judge Kaplan off of their case. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying tactically, from their point of view, given Kaplan's rulings in the first trial, because in the first trial, there were a lot of controversial rulings by Kaplan. Remember this, Mark, if they win that first trial appeal, they'll win this appeal.
Right.
And the reason they'll win this appeal is all based on the fact that a jury has conclusively determined that Trump assaulted her. And of course, then he's lying when he says, I didn't assault her. It was all a hoax. This woman's making it up. Even after the verdict where the $5 million came in, he went out and said, it's a hoax. She's making it up. So that's the aggravating conduct. But if the first jury award is not good, and that could be because Judge Kaplan made mistakes, so there would be a new trial ordered there. And then depending how that new trial came out, this second trial would come out differently. But in terms of paying the $83 million, here's what Trump has to do. He has to either put up $83 million. Now, I don't believe a lot of what he says. I don't believe most of what he says. But he says he has $400 million cash. He's got the Trump Tower. A lot of people are joking it's going to be called the E. Jean Carroll Tower pretty soon. But he's going to be he'll sell other things before he sells Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue for the award. So he could find a bank to lend him the money. If someone will lend him $83 million, he can put up, like you can get money from anything. He can put up.
But wait a minute. To this point, he will have to put it up. On what kind of timeline will he have to put it up?
Very soon. Very soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. This is an urgent matter for him right now because he's got to do one of three things. He's got to put up $83 million cash. I think he'll be very reluctant to have a cash outflow. And he can't do the big scam. He can't do the big lie with his followers. They have money to send him $25 because they believe in him, but they don't have $83 million to put up for him. And the Republican PACs that are behind him, they're not going to put it. So he's got to dig into his pocket. I don't think it's very unlikely he'll dig into his pocket for $83 million. He could come up with the bond. The bond is over 10%. So he'd have to pay $9 million to get the bond. And then if he loses, he's going to have to pay the 83 on top of the bond.
And again, does that bond,
or he can get a bank to
money
finance.
Go to E. Jean Carroll, yes or no?
No, I don't think any money actually goes to E. Jean Carroll right now. It's security to make sure. It's security to make sure.
When you say she'll get the money someday, but not today, she's 80. I mean, I'm not suggesting that she doesn't have a continued great long life ahead of her. I'm really not. I mean, I think you can live, whatever. But I am suggesting that she'd like to use that money sooner rather than later. What reasonable timeline might there be? I mean, is there? Are we talking about a year, 2 years? I mean, might he be able to drag it out that long before she gets any of these funds?
Well, that's a great question. And to finish with Trump's third option would be to finance the $83 million, get some bank. But you ask yourself, what bank would lend him some money with the legal jeopardy? Let's not forget, this was one of his lesser problems, it looks like. He's got the 2 criminal indictments federally. He's got the 2 indictments stateside. He's got other civil cases. He's got that judge in the New York fraud case where the attorney general in New York. This is not the one in Georgia who has problems. This is James in New York who has no problems. Her office has no problems. And the only issue is how many hundreds of millions of dollars Trump is going to be awarded. So he may be a guy who's about to get $370 million awarded against him and his organization, $200 million. If you're a bank, you really do. Even if you're Deutsche Bank, you're one of his angels from before, think he's going to be president again. That's real money. That's real money for a bank to put out. And you got to look at his balance sheet, not the nonsense with the 3 times the real size of the apartment thing. I mean, the scrutiny of the balance sheet now is going to be absolutely intense. So, but I think that's probably the most likely thing, that he'll get some bank to put that up, or he'll put up the 10 million. Now, turning to E. Jean Carroll, she has the same option. I mean, if you were a bank and she's got these 2 awards, one for 83 million and one for 5 million, wouldn't you lend her some money?
I see.
I
so
think
she
she'll
can
have
borrow against the judgment. Okay.
She'll have loads and loads of people who want to, it's like these people with the PI cases. They'll buy your PI case, but for peanuts of what it's worth. But you need the money so bad, right? Sure. You need to stay afloat while the insurance company jerks you around. Okay.
Right.
But so she'll have to pay. But, if it's $88 million and they charge you these usurious rates, E. Jean Carroll, take some, live a little, enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
And there'll be lots of people willing to lend her money, especially against the fact that, you say, what are the chances, Mark? Maybe the chances are 80% of her recovering, 80% chance that she's going to get, it's a lot better than betting on a lot of stocks, right? It's a lot better than betting on penny stocks and even some other, more established stocks. It's a pretty good bet. So she'll get some money. Remember, there's also the angel sitting out there with the 10 million. People settle. As I said, I think Trump is going to get the nomination and lose. I think that after January 2025, he's going to be a man with a huge desire to settle, including he'll want to settle this case. What's this case worth in settlement value? If you say it's really 80%, it's 80% of 88 million to settle the 2 cases. If you think it's 50-50, it's 40 million to settle the 2 cases. But Trump will pay serious money in this case, probably after January 2025, to settle it, which is what happens with these things. If there's never any settlement and he fights it all the way, he'll argue that Judge Kaplan made errors in the first trial. If he wins the first trial, new trial there, he's going to effectively get well, he might not get a new trial on damages, but I just think it would be very fraught for the E. Jean Carroll side in the second damages trial if they were to lose the first trial and have to start all over again with the first trial. It's not like they're going to just throw it out and say, oh, well, this is what Trump's view of reality is. And I think what a lot of his base is that, some court's going to come along and say, you were the victim, Trump. No court's going to come along on appeal and say, you were the victim. They're going to say, Judge Kaplan made an error here. There was something wrong there. And so you get a new trial.
Wow. It's fascinating. I mean, it is worth the reminder, which you've just given us, that Trump's legal exposure is immense. It's actually a multiple of what this E. Jean Carroll judgment is in New York. And as you say, that has come and gone, that ship. So now it's just a question of how much, and how much is likely to be hundreds of millions of dollars. The reality is, I'd like to follow up on what he may have to do. I mean, he may have to borrow against some of these properties that he has, and I don't know to what extent he's able to do that.
But Mark, let me mention one last thing, too. I can't believe that Haley can't make a political issue of this, because Trump has exercised such poor judgment. It just seems to me that she's got the argument. Maybe you like Trump. Maybe you like what he did when he had his first term, but he's not the guy he used to be. Look at all the errors look at all the errors he's making now. He used to be this Teflon Don. Remember that? He used to be this guy who the Supreme Court took 2 years to rule on his tax returns. He never seemed to get pushed around by the courts. Yes, the Democrats were all trying to get him with all these witch hunts and everything else, but they never got close. Now, look at this. He's got a $5 million verdict against him. He didn't have the right lawyers. Why doesn't he hire the right lawyers? You want him to have the right cabinet, the right attorney general for the United States, do something about the border. He can't even manage his own legal affairs. Here's $83 million in this. He's lost it, okay? Trump has lost it. He's not the old Trump. I can't believe Haley can't make that argument.
Yeah, no, and that's the way it gets out of the public discourse if she makes it. That's a really good point. Hey, David, thank you for responding to our urgent call here, and I look forward to speaking to you on Thursday. Really do appreciate it.
Great to be with you on a really breathtaking. I mean, when people saw $83 million, I know a lot of people who were really gleeful because they thought that Trump had always gotten away with all of his maneuvers, that somehow, no matter what he did, he always got away with it in the courts. And when they saw $83 million, at least as matters stand now, he sure didn't get away with what he did with E. Jean Carroll. And when he commented on it, he didn't defame her again. So,
and this is, he, as you say, I mean, that was, he understands he can't crowd the plate anymore. And, that was a jury. That wasn't one crazy judge who's, got up. That was a jury that awarded.
Unanimous with 5 men. This wasn't, 9, crazed feminists who railroaded him in New York City. 5 men, 4 women, all unanimous.
Wow. Good stuff. Thanks, David.
Great to be with you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
What's a little lie between friends?
Morning.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Good day, sir.
Seriously, what the Why are you yelling?
Yes. Good conversation with David Katz. Really thank him again for doing. I know I was in that hotel room situation, different kind of backdrop for us. It was quick. Had to be ready to go. Kim, you got to be ready to jump into the Batmobile when the Bat beam goes up.
Kim, how are you?
So we are nimble on this show. Again, thanks to Kim for helping to put that together.
Thanks, Tony. Absolutely.
And thank you, Tony, for making it all happen. Wow. So we have a little bit of a fork in the road here. I always like to share our situation with listeners, viewers, supporters, people who regularly stop through. Kim has been in touch with Gregg Olson, the best-selling true crime writer, and he was to have been here for this conversation in our True Crime Corner, which we do every Monday.
Yes.
Kim, he is not here. I'm just wondering what's going on.
Kim, how are you?
I bet he'll pop in. Let's start without him and then see what happens.
Tony, I have also a question for you.
All right.
And that is Kim's level correct? It seems low to me.
It's a bit low.
I don't have.
But I've maxed it out on the board here, so it's on her.
Okay, maybe. But I mean, is it right? Weird. I mean, is it okay, or is it,
It sounds low to me, but sometimes what I hear is not what.
Talk louder or turn yourself up, if you would, Kim. I know you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my.
Kim, how are you?
That's it. So I've just we've lived out loud this part of the show. Hopefully, Gregg Olson will be here. But in any case, we will tell this story that Gregg Olson features in his book, The Amish Wife. And we'll do it in a segment that we do regularly on Mondays, Mark's True Crime Corner.
Let's pay a visit to Mark's True Crime Corner.
This is not a good neighborhood. I'm scared.
Now, here's your host, Mark Thompson.
Thank you very much, everybody. What's the problem, Courtney? Are you okay? Courtney, everybody.
Hi.
Very good. What's your issue now, Courtney? What is it?
Well, I mean, there was supposed to be a guest with me.
Yeah.
Let's just start with that.
Yeah, it really is true. You need it louder?
Just louder a little bit.
Better?
A little down. Okay. Yeah, I was sort of like, you were going to run the interview. I
have to say, this is really unfair because here's what I literally, okay.
Thank you. That's it.
I told Courtney, don't worry about telling the story. We have Gregg Olson to tell the story.
Yeah.
You can just come on and, chime in when necessary on the story. Now, because of some screw up, we don't have Gregg Olson.
Yeah. So now you have me.
Yeah.
And I did listen to about 7 hours of podcasts on this murder, but I'm still probably underprepared, but I'm happy to talk about this.
Would you like me to ask the questions to you that I'd planned to ask Gregg Olson?
Yeah, I'll just answer for him. No, that would not be good. No, but it's a story that I did not know about, and it's a truly horrific story. And I was initially confused, but as I read more about Gregg Olson, I started to understand that he delved into certain aspects of Eli Stutzman's life, and he had written 2 books about different crimes perpetrated by Eli Stutzman.
So Eli Stutzman is there on the screen now.
Yeah, exactly.
He is Amish, is he not? He was an Amish man.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's an Amish man.
That's why this whole thing takes place in Amish country.
It starts there, yes.
Right.
So he was born into an Amish community, but he never really connected with the Amish life.
Yeah, well, I mean, but one thing I will say, and this is something you will not hear many people say, because I think there's a sort of a deference that's offered to the Amish community and sort of a notion that, it's a simple life and they're such simple people and, my gosh, why can't we get back to those values? What happens in a cloistered community like that, and cloistered to be a ding word, is that you have a lot of bad stuff going on, and it's perpetrated oftentimes by party elders or religious elders, etc. And then because the community is so closed, there is almost a protection mechanism built in. There's tons of sexual abuse and other awful things going on in the Amish community, and this patriarchal setup that they have that is then informed by a religiosity, it prevents outside investigators even from coming in and finding out the truth. There's some of that here, but there's even more in the way of a conspiracy, sort of, to cover things up.
Yeah, and exactly. And this took place, the first murder took place in 1977. So at that time, if you were Amish, it was somewhat implied that you were not harmful, right? That you didn't present a threat.
Thank you.
And that might be slightly changed now, looking back, more than 40 years, and with reality shows featuring Amish people, that has changed. But yes, at the time, it was different. And so
who does he kill, this Eli Stutzman?
Oh my gosh.
He kills his wife.
Yeah, because when I was reading about the book, yes, he killed his wife in 1977 on July 12th. So he's born into an Amish family, and he doesn't like being Amish. He doesn't like work. He doesn't like having to do work. He doesn't like having to ride in a carriage.
Those churches.
Yes. But he eventually settles down with a woman named Ida. They have a child. His name is Daniel. They call him Danny. And then she's pregnant with a second child. And she mysteriously dies in a barn fire. And so he says to his neighbor, which I still don't quite understand, call the police. There must be some sort of system in and by which they can call the authorities. The authorities come and they decide that she died. And it says on her, on the coroner report, she died, her heart stopped. Not a heart attack, not anything, not a murder, that her heart stopped. And that was caused by this fire.
We have a picture of somebody else up there, Danny Stutzman.
Yeah, so this is their little boy,
their
Danny.
son, who was also then.
He was a baby then, yeah, and she was pregnant with a second baby. So Ida dies, and Eli decides that he doesn't want to be part of the Amish community anymore. So he does what you would do. He sells all his cattle. He sells his farm. And he goes into what they would call the English world. Now, what a lot of people didn't know was that he was gay. And so he was living a closeted life, sleeping with different men. And so when he went into the English world, this is 1977, he started to party. And he started to find men that he could have relationships with. And he was putting out, what do you call them? I can't even think of them anymore. Like ads, classified ads, personal ads.
Yeah.
Trying to find men. And he went to different parts of the country. So he was in New Mexico, and he was in Wyoming, and he was in Ohio. He was traveling around the country and finding different men to have these relationships with. And again, he was taking drugs and he was partying. And Daniel was part of all of that. Now, he goes on
Daniel is
the son. He's
son.
Sort of dragging him through this.
Exactly.
In fact, there were times where he would have Daniel at these parties.
Right. There is
kind of running around, this poor little boy.
Right.
So Eli goes on to murder 3 other men. And this is happening in like 1985 and 1986. He shoots one man who is his roommate, who wants to go public with their relationship, who doesn't want to pay him anymore for living there. He shoots another man, I think because the guy had his car and he wanted it back. But he goes on to kill 3 different men throughout this time over the course of like 2 years. And then from what I remember, the final unfortunate, horrific murder is his son. And so his son is found by somebody driving by in a somewhat desolate area. His son is found by the side of a road in a ditch. And nobody knows who the little boy is. They call him Little Boy Blue because his son, this is actually a photo from the day that his son was killed.
Oh, my God.
And his son is found in what they're calling like a blue sleeper. I'm assuming some sort of pajamas. They were brand new.
Jeez,
and his son is found on the side of the road, but they can't identify the little boy for 2 years. And there's a national campaign to try to find and identify the boy and find his family. And so they call him the Little Boy Blue. They actually give him the name of Matthew. And then eventually a couple who had been caretakers for the boy for a short amount of time see a flyer. They send a photograph of Daniel to the authorities that have the body of this little boy Blue, and they identify him as Daniel or Danny Stutzman.
Well, it's also grim, I know, which is one of the reasons I'm not drawn to this kind of material normally. But I will tell you that it's when I hear that, you know, they are able to identify a body, when I hear that they are able to connect some kind of horrible thing like this to a person who perpetrated it, then I feel like, okay, well then there's a virtue at the end of this. But it's interesting that the reason it took so long, and I guess everything was sort of viewed as inconclusive, even the death of his wife, okay? So this guy who you're seeing, the father, Eli, he was involved and connected to his wife, who, it was really suspicious. She died in a barn fire. It's unclear why she ran back into a burning barn, you know.
Yeah.
And then the coroner said she died of natural causes, meaning it was a natural heart attack in these flames, right?
Yeah, so Eli tells the authorities that she had a bad heart. And so without much investigation into the murder, the official cause of death is literally, it says heart stopped. It doesn't even say heart attack, it says heart stopped. But her family, Ida's family, is like, she did not have a bad heart. There is no way that that happened. Now, it's interesting because when I was listening to this story, obviously he's a serial killer who did atrocious, awful things. So his wife is one murder among 5. So there wasn't a lot of elaboration in what happened. But from the book, there's a lot of cover-up and a lot of things that are going on,
right.
to hide what actually happened.
To me, that's the intrigue of this story.
Yeah.
So, by the way, this did happen in the 70s. People are asking now, maybe we're just joining.
Yeah, so in 1977, he kills his wife. In 1985, 1986, he goes on to murder 3 other men plus then his son. Yes. He's eventually found. They eventually find him in Texas. He was using his name, but different middle names and different social security numbers and different birth dates. And it's interesting, when he was in Texas, he had called the authorities because someone had broken into his house and then someone had stolen his car, but he was calling in with different names. But the police found him. Now, they didn't have enough evidence to find him guilty for the death of Daniel, but they put him in jail for felony child endangerment.
Yeah, and he tried to claim that his child had a pre-existing lung issue. I mean, the guy is just...
guy's awful.
Right, but more to the last point about cover-up, the death being ruled inconclusive, heart attack, natural causes, this seemed odd. And so when you actually look at the breadcrumb trail, you see it goes back to this coroner. I'm thinking, why is this coroner so quick to kind of rubber stamp a very generic cause of death when it seems as though there might be something underhanded going on? And then you see that trail of breadcrumbs linked to the sheriff, right?
Yes, yeah.
Now, the sheriff is a key figure because the sheriff, it would seem, was actively involved in covering this up. And the reason for that was what?
The sheriff was having a sexual relationship with Eli. So in 1977, Eli is in the Amish community. There's the sheriff, and the sheriff is closetedly homosexual. He's gay, and he's having these homosexual relationships, but he is not public with that. And so, in fact, because of this relationship with Eli, he has covered up the murder of Ida in the barn fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you see why the evidence and why the trail was covered up.
These are the 5 victims that they can connect to Eli. He had tested positive for HIV, and he was telling men that he was having sexual relationships with that he was negative and that he had just been tested. So it's hard to even determine how many people were affected by this terrible, awful, horrific person.
Killed his roommate, killed his son, killed his wife, killed those guys you're talking about. Ultimately, what happens to him?
Eli Stutzman gets out of jail. and he's living.
Gets out of jail, everybody.
Yep.
Okay, that's it.
Out of jail or prison. He's
Right.
living in Texas. He is still putting up classified ads for men. He's running a leather company or a small business where he's making leather goods. And then one day in 2007, he commits suicide. So he commits suicide, and they find him lying on his couch with the TV on in his apartment. And so he kills himself in 2007.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. And as I say, I think it's a window into this Amish world where a lot of bad stuff goes down and it is covered up, and you don't need an outside sheriff to cover it up. It's covered up by the other members of what is a religious tribe, and it is and they close out. They really wall themselves out from outside investigation. Not unlike other religious tribes, the Catholic Church. Many of these intense religious communities, they exist without oversight. And this is a brutal, brutal thing that happened. The book is The Amish Wife, Unraveling the Lies, Secrets, and Conspiracy That Let a Killer Go Free by Gregg Olson. Gregg, not with us today. A full explanation will follow, and we will share it with you. Gregg with 2 G's, which I madly respect. The second G would be silent then, Courtney? It's just the first G he uses, right?
Yeah. Well,
so is the first G silent or is the second G silent?
It's, you mean at the end of his name?
At the end of Gregg, there are 2 G's.
There are 2 G's.
We don't say Gregg, we say Gregg. So there's one G that you hear and there's one G that you don't. Is it the first or second that you hear?
I'm going to assume it's the second that's silent, you know?
That would be right.
Kind of like
the second is silent.
Kind of like in French, you don't pronounce the last letter.
Yes, it is exactly right.
Who is having that conversation?
I'm having it now. You don't, and by the way, it's true. You don't hear that conversation much. But I say those Greggs who have 2 G's, one of you should go with a 3rd G.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take an extra G, you put it on to the existing. You see how he's got 2 G's there?
Yeah. Just add, you mean at the end of his name, add a third
G. And say, and that way you could actually say, the 2 G's, 2 of the G's are silent. When people say, how do you spell your name? You go Greggg. They go, really? You've got 3 G's? Yeah, actually, the last 2 are silent.
But if somebody contacted you with 3 G's at the end of their name, you would think they were malicious in
That's
some
true.
way.
It may not be.
Some sort of scam.
You may want to take a meeting on it. I haven't really thought it through. I'll be honest with you.
Somebody sent me a misspelled link this weekend. And I didn't want to click on it. I didn't care what they were doing, and this was supposed to be someone legitimate. The minute it's misspelled, I was like, I don't know.
Courtney is the love of my life, but I will tell you, she is very tough on people. And if somebody...
I didn't know that was coming.
I
thought it was a compliment.
It's crazy how she disqualifies people from her life based on something. Oh, my God. They misspelled. Forget it. I looked at their website and such is misspelled. Forget it. They're out.
I mean, Mark,
like, really?
I don't have a lot of time.
Honey, I think you're being a little tough on
I don't have a lot of time for people that...
you don't have a lot of time for people. That's right.
Present a
threat. Stop right there. Courtney, love having you with us.
Thank you for having
very
me.
much.
I hope I did at least some of.
You did. You brought it to life.
The story, And
we'll now. Gregg Olson is missing, and let's do a book about that. Maybe we'll be back with that true crime story. So thank you, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
That's Mark's True Crime Corner.
True Crime Corner, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
So what is the story, Kim, with Gregg Olson? What happened? Share it with us. You can unmute and tell me the story.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been on the phone with the PR people for Gregg Olson, and I'm told that his assistant is saying that he had something else come up and he's terribly sorry.
Oh, well, that's really, I am terrible.
What?
Wow.
Yes.
I had something come up.
Yeah, we all have things come up. You think this is something,
Yeah.
You know what came up, Greg, is the time you're supposed to be on this goddamn show. That's what's... that's what actually came up.
Number New York Times and Amazon number one author.
There's never been anything like this.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's kind of a big deal,
Yeah. But I mean,
do you know who I am?
I don't know if you're aware.
Kind of a big deal.
He's been on podcasts that have like 9 listeners. Okay, so I know he's not. Yeah. So we have a little more than 9.
A couple more.
Yeah. I'm going to need a minute to recover from this.
Yeah.
Did they confirm, or do we don't do confirmations?
Yeah, it was confirmed. The PR person says she's horribly sorry. I'm very disappointed that this happened, and they're so kind about it. So
this feels like this weekend.
They're kind about it. We canceled without telling you, but we're kind about it. How about that, everyone? That's the new America where, hey, if you do something you shouldn't, but you're kind about it. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We let you off the hook. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I think it's disgusting.
You can let go of it too, G's.
Let GGO of it. I am so over him.
Good day, sir.
That's right.
Well done, Courtney. Well done.
Will you send him
Your love?
a piece of this? Yeah.
Your love.
I don't know. Anyway, that happened.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
Yeah. You know how I got the George Santos drop is from Courtney, just because she's on. I'll tell you. You know,
a lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
We were quoting this all weekend.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. It's the gift that keeps giving.
Anyway. All right. Courtney, thank you very much. All right.
Well,
bye-bye, Courtney.
Touchette. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah.
She did amazing on the fly like that.
She did amazing on the fly. And I literally had told her, don't worry about it. Gregg Olson will be here. He'll walk us through it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah. I don't want to be too tough, but that's super lame. I mean, really lame. You need to let me know so I don't tease it to the audience. I posted about it, etc. I read the damn book.
Yeah.
What kind of crap is that, man? You make me read your book and then you don't show up?
It's a good book.
F you. F you. I just said it. F you, dude. F you. Seriously. You ought to come on and apologize. We have a lot of different ways you can apologize on this show. You know, there's no shortage of apologies.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
That's a solid one, Greg, and you ought to use that. I'd apologize to, may as well apologize to the Asian community.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yeah. Anyway, I will move on. I'm not good at moving on, but I will move on.
Release. Let it go, go, and release it.
Greg, you should do another book as your next book. Yeah. How I make appointments and then don't show up at them at the last moment. I have a really good Law and Disorder coming, though. By the way, that's a great story, that Amish story. So, you know, the only reason I'm hating on him is because he's a no-show. But he was a no-show, right? They didn't email us and say, last minute, Greg won't be able to be there.
He's a no-show.
He's a no-show. So that's as tacky and crappy and cheesy and awful. And give me another, I need another adjective, Tony. Gross, maybe?
Thanks, Tony.
You don't know. I mean, maybe he had a
no, if something came, let us know. Just email us.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. I'm moving on. To another segment where I dump on Greg.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, let me finish. I'm not moving on from the subject.
Can you let him finish,
Yeah,
sir?
I'm just moving on from dumping on him now to dumping on him later. Now, next week, I believe, or maybe it's the week following, Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC will be coming into Mark's True Crime Corner. So you'll get another luminary. Yeah. That's going to be strong. Yeah. Maybe the man has a drinking problem. Sure, let's start a rumor. Yeah. That's great. I love my audience. They always are there with a narrative.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
No, I don't think there's alcohol. Luminary is a ding word. All right. Kim's News and then a great law and disorder segment. Smash the like button if you would.
With your iron rod.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up. Great law and disorder. It relates to the Wizard of Oz, among other things. We've got some great stories. And thank you for a $5 super sticker, super chat, super. Cindy, thank you for the super chat.
Big shout out.
Rather give Mark money over a no response, no show person. Yeah. Thank you. Rather have the donation than have the no show, no response person. And Wes, thank you very much for super sticker.
Big shout out.
So the super stickers and super chats are a great way to support the show on an ongoing basis, but you can just jump in and do it right now on YouTube. But you can also subscribe. That costs you nothing. And you can be an ongoing supporter through Patreon and PayPal. Both those links to Patreon and PayPal, those are, if I can say, that's the lifeblood of this show. It's at themarkthompsonshow.com, and then there are links to both. themarkthompsonshow.com, and click to Patreon or PayPal links to become an ongoing contributor. All right, Kim's News and law and disorder, and then a word about animals later this hour.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. The Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the Biden administration will take all necessary actions to defend service members. His comments at the Pentagon today came after an attack on a U.S. outpost in Jordan that left 3 American troops dead. President Biden has vowed to retaliate against Iranian-backed groups in that region accused of carrying out the strike.
One of the things that's interesting about that, and this is just of this morning, they think that the reason that drone got through, ended up killing service people, wounding many others, is because American radar and the American outpost thought that drone was an American drone. They actually felt, this is preliminarily, this just broke this morning, they felt that was likely an American drone. It looks as though, again, these early investigations are revealing that that's the reason that drone got through and did damage. So bizarre. You realize the fog of war.
A verdict in Donald Trump's New York civil fraud trial could come as soon as this week. State Attorney General Letitia James wants a Manhattan judge to order Trump to pay a $370 million fine in her case against the former president, which accuses him of falsely inflating the value of real estate in order to get more favorable loans. The judge has been expected to rule by the end of the month. That would be a very expensive month for Donald Trump.
That's true.
Prison time.
There's never been anything like this.
Right, okay.
Prison time being ordered for a former IRS contractor who leaked the tax records of Donald Trump and others. Charles Littlejohn was sentenced to 5 years in prison today. He pleaded guilty in October to 1 count of unauthorized disclosure of tax returns. The trial for rapper Young Thug is back underway in Atlanta. He is facing 8 criminal counts in a massive RICO case, also involving 5 other defendants. Prosecutors are expected to call at least 400 witnesses in this trial that is expected to last at least 6 months. Sacramento Congresswoman Doris Matsui writing a bill to crack down on robocallers. The ranking member of the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee is introducing the Stop Scams and Spam Act, directing the FCC to develop a tracking system to monitor and publish the top 100 illegal robocall and spam text campaigns. Matsui's bill is an effort to close a loophole created when the Supreme Court excluded the bulk of robocalls from the 1990 1991 law, which greatly restricted the technology. That has led American consumers as a whole to receive about 4 billion robocalls per month, according to a Matsui press release. And I have a warranty to sell you, right? A Northern California man's likely headed to prison after stealing MacBooks from his employer, allegedly, and then reselling them out of state. 49-year-old Andrew Halverson of Livermore was the IT director at his tech company and was responsible for ordering equipment for employees. Federal prosecutors say Halverson began stealing MacBook computers and selling them for cash to a person who then resold them and shipped them out of state. In total, at least 141 computers were stolen, costing the company $535,000. Halverson could face 5 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 when he is sentenced on April 15th. And you know it's true, excitement is spreading across the Bay Area because the San Francisco 49ers are headed to the Super Bowl.
It's everything to me. It is literally everything to me. And the city deserves this. And I'm just so happy that we won!
People excited? Just a little bit. That's right. That was Christopher Garcia celebrating after the game. San Francisco earned a rematch against Kansas City after losing to the Chiefs in 2020. Many thought might not happen when the team was down by 17 points in the first half of last night's NFC Championship game. Quarterback Brock Purdy says they went into the locker room knowing what had to be done, and they did it, scoring an epic comeback to beat the Detroit Lions 34-31. Coach Kyle Shanahan is giving the players a couple days off before they return for training and the road to Las Vegas next weekend. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Boy, don't we love some good wine. Perfect for a Super Bowl party. That's right, but you got to order it now to get it in time for the Super Bowl. You too could be having a flight of wine as you watch the 49ers take the field. This is good wine, I'm telling you. And not only is it good wine, and not only are the folks at Tenuta Vineyards really nice people, Rich and Nancy, but if you call them and say smash it with your iron rod, you get your 10% Mark Thompson Show discount. So
yeah, you do.
Yeah, check it out. They'll get you some wines. If you call Rich and say, here's the kind of wines I usually like, here's what I'm looking for, he'll be able to say, these are the perfect ones for you. You can also head out to the winery, check it out, and taste it for yourself. But if you don't have time to do that, you can always look at their website and give them a call to order your wine and get your discount. It is 10% off. You say smash it with your iron rod, and you can call Rich at area code 925-699 4576. So
the number again is
925-699 4576. You got it. There you have it. Get some wine, get some good stuff. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Jada had nothing to do with it.
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
I love it when you're angry.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
Where are my weed smokers at?
What do you think I'm going to say to you?
Don't talk to me that way.
That was very inappropriate.
That's not fake. That's real. Seriously, what the f?
I love it.
It was great. I loved it.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
It's fantastic.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
The science is ridiculous.
What up, everybody? It's our Monday show. If you're just joining us from wherever you're joining us, however you're joining us, appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your support. Cheryl Massarelli, how about a big shout out?
Big shout out.
Super sticker for $20. Not going to cry, but
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
It is the season where I cry a lot. I'll be honest with you. Cheryl, thank you so much.
Big shout out.
And thank you so much, everyone who's been part of supporting this program. I appreciate it.
I was going to say, I got corrected. PT says, Kim, it's the big game, not the Super Bowl. But isn't the big game here in the Bay Area the Stanford-Cal game? That's the big game.
Oh, I see.
Super Bowl's the Super Bowl. Big game's a Cal-Stanford game. Come on.
Huh. I didn't realize that there seems to be a discrepancy.
There is.
And Kim, I will give you a tip, PT. Don't argue with Kim. She is really
Kim, how are you?
not somebody, she makes you feel bad for whatever you said.
Oh.
It's really brutal.
Yeah.
We're going to go to counseling probably before the end of the year. But, don't argue with her. That's my,
Thank you,
now,
Franco. Appreciate it.
I have much here before I get to our regular animal segment, and the much here is in the form of things that fall into the category of law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
There was a big heist of the ruby slippers that were worn by Judy Garland. In fact, they were in the Judy Garland Museum, and they were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum. These are those that were worn in The Wizard of Oz. I think there are only 3 pair.
If you're going to steal something, that's pretty good.
It was a thief, a former mobster, who stole these ruby slippers because he wanted to pull off one last score. It sounds like something out of a movie. Just one last big score before I hang it up. Terry John Martin, 76, stole the slippers. The slippers are adorned with sequins and beads. But the reason he stole them, there he is. Now you can see he's the guy with the oxygen tank, and he's in a wheelchair. And that's one of the reasons.
The slippers in that condition.
Well, he wasn't in that condition when he stole them.
Oh.
He stole the slippers in 2005 from the Judy Garland Museum, and that was in his, I guess it was in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Okay, I know you're thinking Grand Rapids, Michigan. They say it was Minnesota. And what happened was he was told that the ruby slippers were actually made with real gems, exactly. So he thought they were made with real gems. In fact, he was told that's the reason they're worth over $1 million. So he was trying to remove the gems from the slippers after he got them and then go get money for those gems. Only problem is the ruby slippers weren't made of gems. Those were just glass beads that were on the ruby slippers. They were a movie prop. You think they're going to let Judy Garland dance around the yellow brick road with real gems attached to the shoes? Come on. So this ex-mobster got what is arguably the most coveted prop in movie history when he stole these ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. But he thought the shoes were worth something by taking them apart when they're really worth something by keeping it together. He wasn't charged with the theft until 2023. And he entered a guilty plea, said that he, and this is the most bizarre part, I guess. You know, I'm thinking, well, he went to the Judy Garland Museum. He timed out when the security is changing shifts. He noticed when the case that the ruby slippers occupied was not guarded. Then he timed his taking of the slippers so as to make his getaway easier. No, that's not what happened at all. He went in, he used a hammer, broke through the door of the Judy Garland Museum. Then he went into the display case that contained the slippers inside the Judy Garland Museum, and he smashed that with the hammer, and they just walked out with the slippers. It wasn't a caper. It wasn't like it wasn't like the Thomas Crown affair. He just went in and got it. The FBI recovered the slippers in a 2018 sting operation in Minneapolis after a man approached the insurer claiming that he could get the slippers back, but he wanted $200,000 more than the reward that was being offered. So that
Look at all the greed in this story. Everybody wants money.
Greed and stupidity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible. So apparently he's in hospice care now with less than 6 months to live. And so the court, in his latest appearance, said, you can just go free. We're not going to charge you with anything. Yeah. Meantime, a major decision in the auctioning of the Wizard of Oz dress. This all just happened. I'm not like collecting this from months. These Wizard of Oz things happened just in the last couple of days. This blue gingham dress worn by Judy Garland in the Wizard of Oz, there were 6 known to have been worn by Judy. One of those is in Catholic University hands. What this story essentially is of how the niece of a Catholic priest who was given the dress 50 years ago tried to sue to say she is the owner of this film relic, this blue gingham dress that is in The Wizard of Oz, right? But the federal judge in New York ruled that the niece of the Catholic priest, again, the Catholic priest was given the dress as a gift, has no rightful claim to this. Now the university is going to sell the dress at auction to fund its art programming. This has been going on a long time, since 1973, because in 1973, the actress Mercedes McCambridge donated that dress to this reverend, right? He was leading the drama department at Catholic University. And she voiced, Mercedes McCambridge is an actress. She voiced the Exorcist demon sound. That was Mercedes McCambridge. And she became a friend of Garland, many, many years ago, and was an artist in residence at Catholic University at the time that she gave them this gift. So, Judy Garland died of an overdose when she was 47, I believe. And she gave the dress, this is McCambridge, to this reverend, one of several identical costumes used in the film, but there were only 6 of them. This one was worn by Judy Garland. A near identical Dorothy dress had sold at auction in 2015 for more than $1.5 million. So that's why Catholic University is trying to sell this costume to fund a faculty chair in fine arts and a new film acting program. So this is when who owns this dress to be able to actually auction it off comes into relevance. Anyway, long story longer, it goes to court, and finally, just in the last few days, the U.S. District Court sided with the school, saying that the niece of the Catholic priest had never been appointed to represent the uncle's estate, and that would be the only way she'd be justified in claiming ownership to the dress. And so the dress will be auctioned, and it will finance the Catholic University drama program. It got me thinking about The Wizard of Oz, Kim. Have you seen The Wizard of Oz?
I have. I was thinking the other day about how before streaming, it would be on once a year. Remember, it would be on like
right.
Same with The Sound of Music and The Wizard of Oz. Those are two movies that were on once a year, and everybody knew when they were coming on. And everyone would. I was explaining this to my kids that everyone would gather around their TVs at night, and it was kind of like this common experience where now I could watch The Wizard of Oz. I don't know who else is watching The Wizard of Oz, but back then it was this collective experience together. Where then the next day you'd go to school and everyone would be talking about The Wizard of Oz or singing songs from it. How we kind of have these moments as a society where we would all, gather around, do the same thing at the same time. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's why family entertainment like America's Got Talent, American Idol, some of these things that bring the demographics of the family as disparate as they are all to the TV at the same time or whatever, that's definitely a vanishing kind of phenomenon. Wizard of Oz was just that, what Kim's talking about. You would all get together as a family, or certainly the kids would, and there was no recording it. I mean, you had to see it there while it was on. And I remember, I think I was 5 years old, and I still remember seeing The Wizard of Oz and I remember the moment of greatest fear was when Dorothy is calling for Auntie M. She's saying, Auntie M, Auntie M, and she's looking in this crystal ball, and the image of Auntie M, who is calling for Dorothy, and Dorothy's responding to her, turns to the witch, and the witch mocks Dorothy with the call, Auntie M, and the camera zooms in to the witch mocking Dorothy with the Auntie M call. And I remember as a kid, to my core, I was frightened, and I still remember the shot that did it. So, lots in The Wizard of Oz. And then the Munchkins were great. Here's a trivia question for you. Tony, do you have this up can I put it up in the chat?
Thanks, Tony. It's up.
Okay. In the chat, you can see if you're watching live, the question, who was the last living Munchkin? Who was the last living Munchkin? And I do give you choices. This is a multiple choice. Was the last living Munchkin, now passed away, the mayor of Munchkin City? The coroner of Munchkin City? Or a member of the Lollipop Guild in Munchkin City? The mayor of Munchkin City? The coroner of Munchkin City? Or a member of the Lollipop Guild in Munchkin City? Who was the last living Munchkin before they passed away? One guess for Lollipop Guild from Gordon. The monkeys scared me, says somebody.
A lot of people are scared by the monkeys,
Yeah, the monkeys were scary, I agree. Member of the Lollipop Guild, he was a kid, says Tom. Oh, that's good knowledge if that's true. Member of the Lollipop, says Molly. Wow. Small people have shorter lives, says Phineas. I thought super tall people had shorter lives. The list of people who have shorter lives is really getting longer. It's sad. How many Lollipop Guild members were there? I don't know. It was a very strong guild in Munchkin City. Lollipop Guild, says Lorraine. The answer, Walter says Lollipop Guild. Lollipop Guild is the answer, by the way. It was indeed Jerry Marin. He played a member of the Lollipop Guild in 1939, and he became the last surviving adult Munchkin following the passing of Ruth Ducini in 2014. He was also, by the way, the last surviving cast member with a specifically identifiable speaking or singing role. So he outlived everyone. I mean, Glinda and all three of the moving trees are what scared me. Yeah, those were scary too. I agree. Anyway, seems like everybody was on board with the last living creature being a living Munchkin, being the Lollipop Guild Munchkin. So congratulations, everyone. Woo-hoo. Law and Disorder is not, maybe it is over. Damn it. Do I have to push the rest of this because I spent so much time on the ruby slippers and?
No, I think you could keep going if you want.
Okay, let me just give you one more because I really do like whenever apparently something like this happens. It involves a man of the cloth. A pastor accused of $3 million in a crypto scam claims God told him to do it, but now he says it's possible that he misheard God.
What?
God got the wires crossed.
Wow.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Colorado Securities Commissioner filing a legal complaint against Eligio Regaldo, who goes by Eli, and his wife, Caitlin Regaldo. The whole family is involved in the fraud. The couple raised nearly $3.2 million by targeting Denver's Christian community with the cryptocurrency that's marketed as index coin. I told you a bit about this in a prior Law and Disorder, but the cool part of this, that he claimed was a low-risk, high-profit investment, while it was actually illiquid and practically useless, is that he said, the Lord is telling me, I want you to build this. That's a quote. The quote continues, we took God at his word and sold a cryptocurrency with no clear exit. Meantime, the Colorado Securities Commissioner said in his own words that did not quote God, we allege that Mr. Regaldo took advantage of the trust and faith of his own Christian community and that he peddled outlandish promises of wealth when he sold them essentially worthless cryptocurrencies. The filing is alleging that while investors lost millions of dollars, the Regaldos used the funds to, if you guess, support a lavish lifestyle. You got it, everyone. Yeah.
No.
I mean...
How lavish are we talking?
Yeah. What's that, Tony?
Do you want the video of his apology?
Oh my
yes.
gosh, I most certainly do. Here he is, apologize.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, I want to hear his apology.
One of two things have happened. One, either I misheard God, and every one of you who prayed and came in, you as well. Or two, God is still not done with this project, and he is going to do a new thing.
Wow.
That's the apology?
This guy has BALLS's, man. Ooh.
That's the apology.
Yeah.
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
No, it was not that. It was not the sincere apology. Maybe I misheard it, or God actually isn't done with this project, everybody.
I apologize to all who have been hurt.
No, he did not hit with it. That preacher was far more...
Is that what that means? I'm not done with this project? As BW Rock says, just donate more money,
yeah,
suckers.
I'm just $500,000 short.
I apologize to every preacher and pastor.
Right.
Oh.
My God. This is really...
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
Yeah, come on, cheapos. Throw me some more money so I can beat this rap. I've been wrongly accused. Here I am trying to do the Lord's work, and the state, the long arm of the government is getting between me and... No, Flo says, is that an actual apology? It doesn't feel like...
No.
It does feel like BS. But, hey, these splinter churches can oftentimes operate like cults, such that I know that there are many would say, well, all religions cultish, and et cetera. And maybe there's truth to that, whatever. But I would just say that there is a lot of pressure to support when you're in a closely knit religious community. Like, did you buy the pastor's NDX coin? That's supposed to be, So, anyway, that's the deal on the latest there. Karen is waiting, I think, with our, but I have to button out. Anyway, they've got now, by the way, the last thing I'll say about Regaldo is he said, I said, Lord, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't have any experience in this industry. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to be caught up in something. That's what he's saying he told the Lord.
Yeah.
And then as you know, investors in this index coin, INDX is what it was called, they couldn't convert the crypto into cash because of technical failures. That's what he said. And that's the reason, we launched a whole exchange, a separate exchange for this crypto that we've sold you, and now you've been unable to process it and liquidate it, and that's because of a technical issue. But the Colorado Securities Commissioner said that these people had no experience in cryptocurrency, and this was essentially a rip-off operation.
Yeah.
So that's why it is in and concludes Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
All right, good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I loved the Judy Garland Ruby Slippers ripoff. I love the debate over the dress. Love the fake coin, crypto coin that was actually just used for. I liked it all. Thank you, Tony.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
And I liked the apology, which I felt was the new kind of apology, the tepid non-apology apology. That's what carries the day. So, all right, without any further delay, let's do it. This is a word about animals.
Now, a word about animals on the Mark Thompson Show.
Put it together for Karen Dawn, everybody, from Dawn Watch. Hello, Karen.
Good to see you.
Yeah. What do you have for us today?
Always so much going on. But what finally made international news today, after making a lot of news in Georgia, was a plan to build a laboratory where they will breed about 30,000 macaque monkeys to be used in experiments for new drugs, etc. And folks in Bainbridge, Georgia, aren't very pleased about this. And it's been in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution a few times, and today, as you saw, Mark, it's also in the Daily Mail in was it the Mail? I think it was in the UK, but it's starting to make the rounds, given that these people are protesting pretty hard. And I called my book "Thanking the Monkey," which of course is a playful title, but was actually based on a section of the book that deals specifically with primate experimentation. And we can chat about that, I hope. But what the resistance to this lab being built is based on is how it's going to affect the neighbors. And last week we talked about the Netflix series, You Are What You Eat, which I had only watched one of the episodes, and then I went on to watch the others. And there's a particularly strong section in that show where they talk with people in the towns where the pig facilities are built. And these are the people who are getting excrement sprayed all over them, and they can't put their washing out on the line without factory farm excrement floating and making it stink. And we've kind of got a similar situation here where nobody wants a facility which is going to house 30,000 monkeys in their town. So I haven't actually gone and looked up and examined Bainbridge, but I'm assuming it doesn't look a whole lot like Montecito. And so it's so vilely unfair that these people have to put up with this. And thank heavens they're not just taking it, because they have learned from the folks who've been affected by factory farms and places like that, that it is not fun to have 30,000 animals right there on your property. And these are animals who are going to be subjected to horrendous diseases. And the chances that none of them will ever escape, somebody mentions in the article, if there's a tornado, of course they're going to have escapees. Of course this is dangerous for the people who live nearby. And of course it's going to affect their property values. Plus 30,000 monkeys will be releasing a lot of excrement, which is going to go into end up eventually when there's rains and floods into the local waterways. This is just absolutely awful for the humans before we even get on to what it's like for the animals involved. And as I mentioned, thank heavens it's starting to make news and get some kickback.
Yeah, and I like that you also mentioned that it's really the notion of neighbors being closely, close enough to all of these monkeys that they're worried about their neighborhood. They're worried about their property values, as you've suggested. They worry about the noise. They worry about the, there's not a lot of worry about the monkeys. There's not a worry about, they're being sold to labs where it's a torturous, awful world in these labs. I mean, were it only that they were exposed to these illnesses, et cetera, but their life in these cages, and I mean, I know way too much about this, and I don't want to turn people off, but it's just in all the ways that they can get into your spinal cord and other key parts of your body. They do it with animals, of course, without any anesthesia, and they do it with that. I mean, it's a brutal life. So anyway, back to the monkeys being, as you suggested, the research center that would house 43,000 monkeys or whatever it is. It pulls back the curtain on an industry.
I'm gonna follow up, not with details of the torture, but I think a lot of people think, well, it's either the monkeys or it's us. And I mentioned, dangerous diseases, etc. And actually, you know what? I just realized I've misled people a little bit by leading with that, because the vast majority of experiments on animals for medical testing, it's not about trying to cure dangerous diseases. It's not about trying to cure cancer. It's that when a drug company releases a drug, for 10 years, they can make money on it. And at the end of that 10 years, the drug becomes generic. The company loses its patent. You can buy a generic version of that drug after 10 years. And the companies then are out of money on that drug. So they have to release another drug. And something that I think most people don't realize is that when a company is doing research for a new drug, that drug has to do what the company says it will do. For example, if they say they're putting out a decongestant for colds, they have to release a decongestant for colds. What the drug doesn't have to do is do any better a job of it than the previous drug did, the one that they're no longer making money on. Or they can change it slightly to make it go for 6 hours rather than 4 hours, or 8 hours rather than 4 hours. But a brand new drug aimed that's brought onto the market to make more money for the industry needn't be any more effective than previous drugs. And that's what the vast majority of these tests on monkeys are for. It's not because we're desperately trying to kill cancer or Parkinson's disease. Now, they are testing on cancer and Parkinson's disease, et cetera. And another time we could have a really interesting topic on whether it's ever right to test on members of other species when we're hoping to save human life. But if people think that's what these 30,000 monkeys are going to be used for, if they do some research, they'll find they're way off track on that. And it's not a matter of saving human life. It's a matter of trying to make more money for the drug companies whose patents have run out on their drugs that are currently on the market.
Well, this is, I think, provocative on two levels. There's this from Lori, which is absolutely true. I worry about the fact that animal studies do not usually translate to human results. Support group Scientists Against Animal Experimentation. That is 100% true, Lori. And one of the things that I think Karen is touching on sort of obliquely there, and obliquely is a ding word, is the notion that the animal experiments are used in ways to wiggle their way into new FDA approval for a drug that they can then make money off of. But to your point, Lori, there is really no relationship between the success in animal testing and the success in a human population. So you have an industry, and this is the real thing. I'm so glad that you're mentioning this today, because to me, I find it one of the most galling things that universities and government agencies, they have immense, and you've seen it here in pharmaceuticals, immense labs dedicated to this horror of animal testing, when the animal testing bears no relationship to what's going to happen in the human population. So why do these things exist? Because of money. When it doesn't make any sense, it's always because of money. And in this case, it's an industry. So many people make money on this animal testing that it exists purely to make money. Now, you would say, Karen is so fair to the other, you would say, well, it does, maybe there are cases in which it might help. Maybe, but overwhelmingly, it's an industry that exists simply to make money.
I love that we're getting to know each other, because, of course, Karen will say, well, you know what? In 1%, in 1% of cases, the results do translate. And some people would say, that's enough. It saves lives. But here's the problem. In all the cases that they don't translate, we endanger a lot of lives. We are so lucky that we have penicillin, because penicillin was not tested on, I think it's guinea pigs. And, when I wrote Thanking the Monkey, I had all this at the top of my brain, but it's one of the very common animals that penicillin kills, just like chocolate kills dogs. So thank heavens we didn't test penicillin on, I think it was guinea pigs, it might have been rabbits, it's one of them. But yeah, it's a crapshoot. And it's also not all about trying to save lives. It's about getting us more nasal decongestant that the patent hasn't run out on yet.
I mean, why not use mice? It was suggested. I mean, Gordon saying, I mean, they do use mice. They do use mice. They use dogs. They use beagles, because beagles are particularly docile. So they like that they won't have to fight with them to put them in the cage and to jam these big steel rods. Dude, what happens in those labs is unspeakably awful. And if it's successful 1% of the time, it's a horror. So anyway.
And it's just, I honestly, I'd love to have a talk one time about if it's about saving lives, is that okay? But it's mostly not. And in honor of Gordon, I really want to, 1 week, Mark, I hope you and I can talk about rats and mice, because it's like, why not use mice? I really understand that people care more about monkeys than they do about mice and rats. But mice and rats are not any less intelligent than, say, dogs. And we don't say, why not use dogs, which they do use as well. So I just, this whole idea that some animals it's okay to torture and others it's not. I'd love to rethink that. But yes, this is 30,000 monkeys that they're talking about using. And of course, they're putting it in an area. I think the company is called Safer Human Medicine or something. It's a bunch of people from the Charles River company. It's their new company, their new job. And part of me thinks I'd just like to take a page from some recent politics and say, why don't we bring these monkeys to the neighborhood of the people who are running this company and see if you don't think it's going to affect property values, if it's not going to be a problem having them there, let's neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, as you and the notion that they would escape, or in other way, that this is with that many creatures. I mean, it very possible.
Of course.
Well, I love that you brought it to our attention. I know our time is short today, but I also am glad that you mentioned that you are what you eat. You were you'd seen one episode the last time, and then I think you messaged me and having seen more and go, well, it's not quite as it's got a point of view for sure. That series, but it's changed a lot of minds.
It definitely has a point of view. And the reason I mention that is because, yes, they don't just do the tests on the twins. They also do mention what the animal farming business does to our world. And they do show these people who are horribly affected by it. So, part of me thinks I'd just like to take a page from some recent politics and say, why don't we bring these monkeys to the neighborhood of the people who are running this company and see if you don't think it's going to affect property values, if it's not going to be have a problem having them there. Let's neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean,
yes, as I suspected, they did find that the people who were on the vegan diet did better on a lot of measures. Not every single measure, so that's interesting. It was very even-handed in that way. But yes, the point of view is there because it does mention all the other negatives of factory farming animals.
So anyway,
diets,
somebody
but
else
it's fun, by the way.
Somebody else who saw it said that that we who produce Game Changers ought to sue them because they essentially took the exact thing that we did with Game Changers, even some of the same experiments, to yield some of the data. And I'm forgetting the word out. However it happens, whatever. It's the same guy, Luis Ceballos.
Exactly, it's the same director.
So I mean,
it's the same folks.
Yeah, so I guess he
had a formula that worked.
Right, he wants to do part 2. It's fine, he can do it. Karen, love visiting with you. Thank you, and I look forward to next week. Thanks Karen Dawn.
Bye.
Join the flock. Again next time for a word about animals on the Mark Thompson Show.
Tony, a little bit late on the close there.
Thanks, Tony.
I don't know what happened.
I had another window open. Sorry.
I got
Thanks, Tony.
Tony is my tech crush.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have one tech crush. I'm allowed one guy who knows his stuff when it comes to the tech.
Well, then I got you fooled.
We have a very big show tomorrow. I'm just looking ahead. Wow, we've got a great show tomorrow because some of the things that we couldn't get to today, we're going to talk about tomorrow, and I really think you're going to like them. One of them, well, before I get to this, do I have to acknowledge anybody else? Let me do this because we're sort of winding down. I have to get Kim to her next destination. Buck Meadows, thanks for a great show. Buck, so good to hear from you. It's been a while. Thank you for the 5 spot.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Calvin Wong. Courtney, how many times did Mark yell during the Niners game? Thank you for the 5. It's so out. True. That Niners game, both games were insane, but the Niners, I mean, having to put together that comeback. Cheryl, thank you for the 20. I've thanked you once. Let me thank you again.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Cheryl. Wow. Very cool. Thank you for the super stickers, super chats, everybody. You can also give us support after hours, Visit themarkthompsonshow.com, click Patreon, PayPal. But you can also hear on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a little heart with a $sign. You can do it that way. So I feel like I'm forgetting something, which is why I'm delaying. Am I delaying anything? Smash the like button. Share the show.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Tony, I don't know, Tony. Do I?
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, if you're sure of that, then I don't know.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know. I feel like I'm leaving. There's no mechanism by which, if I've forgotten something, I can come back on, Tony. This is the end. So if you think of it afterward, all right.
Thanks, Tony. That's always what it's like. The moment I hit end stream, like,
Yeah. Tomorrow, David K. Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, talks about getting the Trump money to E. Jean Carroll and the specter of more money that he'll be owed. A bit of what we talked about with David Katz today, and specter is a ding word. Thanks again to David Katz for being available spur of the moment. Thanks again to Gregg Olson for stiffing us. You are dead to us, Gregg Olson. I want nothing more to do.
You get nothing.
No love.
Good day, sir.
Good day. Goodbye.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
That's right. Marijuana. Did it turn out in California the way they said?
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
I have hard data on marijuana legalization in California, taxes and the like. We'll do it tomorrow. For now, after party's going on. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.